Now that we have heard all of the candidates' introductions, we will go to our event sponsor, Mr. Sadio Barry, for him to begin the questioning portion with his own questions.
Thank you again. Here my question. I have two questions for you guys.
Mr. Barry, your video is off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Maimuna. I'm on now?
Yes, we can see you.
Thank you. I'm sorry about it. All right, guys. First of all, I would like to wish you good luck for the election, for all of you. And thank you for your determination and motivation to run for this position in the matter to assist and help the community, especially the people. As a parent and as a leader, a nonprofit organization leader, we do have most of the time that kind of person coming in our community saying that we understand that you're running for civil court judge. And for sure, in the future, if you need it to transfer to the family court, that's family court concern us a lot. Meaning, the first question is, I'm asking that question because of my experience in the community. People struggle a lot about it. They don't understand how and why the judge can decide this way. But I think tonight is my opportunity to find the answer from you guys. Then maybe tomorrow or next week, if I meet my people, I can explain to them why those decisions come to the judge. The first one is, will gender affect your decision when deciding child custody cases? How would you determine the best interest of the child? The second one is, have any of you practiced family law? If you have, could you explain how child support is determined? Thank you.
Okay, and to begin the questioning, since we did candidate introductions in alphabetical order, we're going to do reverse alphabetical order. So Ms. Powell, you'd be the first to answer.
Okay, please give me 1 second. For some reason, my computer's acting a little crazy.
Of course.
Okay. First of all, Mr. Barry, yes, I've practiced family law in New York City. I've represented individuals in Brooklyn, New York County, Bronx County, as well as Queens. I don't think gender should come into consideration when you're raising your own child. I know some people think that only a father can raise a son and only a mother can raise a daughter. But I think obviously, as long as that parent has the skills and the ability to raise that child in a healthy environment, emotionally, psychologically, and everything else, I think that that should be taken into consideration. And I believe most judges do take that into consideration. In reference to child support, that is set by law. It's based on a percentage of the parent's income, basically the non-custodial parent. So the decisions are based on how much the person makes, as well as how many children that particular individual has who are under a support order from the family court.
Thank you. Now we will go to Ms. Gonzalez-Taylor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barry, for that question. I have not practiced family law. However, I have been in the DOE system for 11 years, so I deal with acts done by students anywhere from 3rd grade through 12th grade and beyond, because the school system allows you to go to school through 21 years old, who have done violent acts or what would be considered delinquent acts in the Family Court Act. Gender should never, ever be a basis for decision in parenting under any circumstance. We are living in a world where we are all accepted for who we are and how we're born. We are living in a world where we're learning to speak to people based on their preferred pronouns. So gender should never be a determinant. As a family court judge, I would not look at whether a mother or father could be any better parent. I myself lived with 2 grandparents, which is a non-traditional family. So the definition of parent is not gender-based, it's based on the loving care that an adult person can provide a child, whether they can provide clothing, food, and shelter, which is what the law requires. And in terms of child custody support orders. That is something that is handled by support magistrates, as far as I'm aware, under the supervision of a family court judge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Ms. Flores.
Of course, I'm on mute. I probably will do that a couple times. So I, yes, have practiced in family court. That has been the foundation of my entire career. So I do not think that gender plays a role. I have represented mothers seeking custody as well as fathers seeking custody. I have also represented both gay males and lesbians who also seek to have custody. And I do not think that gender plays any role. It really boils down to, like you said, the best interest. What is best interest, right? So what the courts look at are several factors and I really probably wouldn't be able to list them all, but we're looking at the age of the child. So the best interest of the child at the age of 5 could be a little bit different than a 10-year-old, and definitely a lot different than incomes of the parents, their schooling, the children's schooling, their rearing as far as education and religion. And there are just so many factors that a judge has to take into when determining best interests, right? So, and then there are more severe issues with best interests where there could be domestic violence in the home, and the judge needs to make the proper determination there, what would be the best interest for that child. As far as child support is determined by a percentage, and it is the percentage of a combined income, right? So the goal of child support is to allow the child to live financially the way they would if the parents were a unit, were intact, right? So you wouldn't be in a child support case if you were a unit. You're there because your parents are separated. So if your parents were together and they made X amount of money, then that is what the courts look at. Let's combine both incomes and take the percentage. In New York, for one child would be 17%, right? And so then the non-custodial parent would be the one to pay the custodial parent whatever the determination is on the income. And I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Now we move to Mr. Cruz.
Well, thank you. I have practiced family law. Having an office on 161st exposes me to many of the problems of, people in the Bronx traditionally next to the courthouse. They look for lawyers right next there, right? So the point is, child support, statutory. We don't need to have a long discussion about that. The numbers dictate the outcome there. With regards to your other question, if elected judge, I can guarantee all that come before us or before me that I'm going to dispense justice without bias or favor, and that includes a blindness to gender. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Barry, do you have another question?
Yes, what I would like to add, if it's possible, is according to the percentage, people saying that more than 50 or 60% of cases, women are taking opportunity, meaning the judge at the woman's side. Is that true or no? When it comes to the child support, yeah.
So we will be going in alphabetical order. So Mr. Cruz.
Well, those are anecdotal situations that ultimately, me as a judicial candidate, I cannot tell you. I can only tell you that if you vote for me, you're going to get a judge that's fair and is going to dispense justice without bias or favor. I mean, that's the extent of how I would address that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we move to Ms. Flores.
So again, child support is a calculation based on a formula, right? So there cannot be favoritism for one side to the other. So before you get to child support and you determine what that amount's going to be, a judge has already determined who the custodial parent is. You can't calculate the child support until you know who is the non-custodial parent and who's the custodial parent, right? So that's already laid out. When you get to the child support, you're providing the magistrate your financial information, whether they be W-2s, your taxes. If you're, say, a taxi cab driver, you're providing whatever receipts you have. If you're a 1099 employee, you're providing the magistrate your 1099 records. So the magistrate doesn't look at who's female, who's the male. The magistrate's not looking at who's making more money, who's making less money. They're not looking at that. They have a formula to follow. There are numbers that get plugged in to a calculation that they have. They have a system where they can calculate. And I think if you Google how to calculate New York State child support, there are some resources out there, not by the court, but by other attorneys that have used some kind of independent calculator, so that you can plug in and have more or less an idea of where you're going to fall. It'll ask you who's the non-custodial parent, it'll ask you who's the custodial parent, it'll ask you what the incomes are and how many children there are. And then you can get more or less a better determination as to where the support magistrate will make his or her ruling once you go into court. So it's not about favoring one side or the other. It's really a formulaic computation.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Now we move to Ms. Gonzalez-Taylor.
Mr. Barry, if I understand your question, are you saying, and if you could just clarify, so maybe I can give you a little bit more of an insight. Are you saying that women use the system against their spouses, or are you saying that they are getting an advantage over child support?
No, what I mean is when they go to they're going to the court, when it comes to child support, women get more opportunity from the judge, meaning any decision from the judge go to the woman's side, and people, they worry about this kind of decision.
Okay, so then you're worried, the decision, the concern of the community is what kind of judge we want on the bench. A judge who is going to side with a woman because it's a woman, or a judge who's going to look at both sides and read through. You know, people do lie. I've been doing fact finding for 11 years. I sit in hearings and people lie. Teachers lie, school safety officers lie, students lie, adults lie. So fact finding is a particular skill. You have to be able to read body language. You have to be able to follow up with questions when you hear inconsistencies from individuals that are appearing before you. That is not a skill that anybody is born with. That is something that you develop from years of experience. That is grand jury presentations as a DA. Hearings, multiple hearings at the NYPD where I had to cross-examine corrupt officers that were accused of doing horrible things in the New York City Police Department. 11 years of cross-examining people who come and accuse students of doing awful things in the school system. That is the skill that you're looking for. You're looking for lawyers who want to be judges who have been doing this for quite some time. Not necessarily in any field, but the ability to be able to question people and find out, kind of like go through the muck and find out who's telling the truth. Because everyone has the potential to lie, especially when it comes to money. People are willing to say whatever it takes when it means that their financial security is at stake. So in terms of looking for a judge who you think is not going to be caring about gender so much, but caring about the integrity of the story that is being told to them and the integrity of what is told to the magistrate who is doing the child support hearings. That is what I would put forward. Anecdotes we can't go by because we would have to do a whole study on the family court system to figure out if this is true.
Thank you.
And now, last but not least, Ms. Powell.
Again, Mr. Barry, a judge in this particular situation is supposed to take in all the facts and circumstances. They're supposed to listen to the individuals, whether represented by counsel or whether they are self-represented. As has been mentioned before, there is financial affidavits that an individual has to bring to court showing his or her financial situation of their current household, as well as, let's say, if the couple had actually been a couple and had one household, what it was like before. Also, as has been previously said, you do have to take the time and the effort to listen to both sides. You have to listen to what is being said, both in direct examination as well as cross-examination, because sometimes the truth is in between. There are some times where people are not being truthful. There's other times when people may not realize that things that they're saying or not saying are as important with coming to that decision. But no, there should be no judge on the bench who's going to take anyone's particular side based on their gender, based on their nationality, based on what they do for a living.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Thank you, Mr. Barry, for your questions, kicking off our forum. Really appreciate having you here. So now we will begin